It's always fun to see the start of something great, even if you're seeing that start from more than a decade later and numerous other successes afterwards. Bastion holds up incredibly well to no one's surprise, with plenty of familiar things for me to go, hey, I know how they adapted that idea for Transistor/Pyre/Hades, and others that were wholly unfamiliar to me and also really fun. Bastion is a really fun game just taken on its own, and was also great fun for any fans of Supergiant games to see where everything originated and what made all their later work possible. Bastion is an action RPG developed by Supergiant and published by Warner Bros. Entertainment. The game was Supergiant's first game after several of the team left Electronic Arts, and its success both ensured the continuation of the studio and allowed them to work independent of publishers ever since. As always, if you want to know more behind-the-scenes information about any of Supergiant's games, I encourage you to check out NoClip's documentaries on each of the games. They are insightful both for general game development and specific ways in which Supergiant works. The game initially came out for the Xbox 360, and after finding success on that platform has continued to be ported over the years since. The game is now available on PC, Mac, Linux, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS4, PS Vita, iOS, and Switch. The game even was available as a browser game for some time, although my attempts to find an extant playable version of this browser port were unsuccessful. The game garnered strong praise from critics, and that translated over to strong sales as well. By 2015, Supergiant revealed the game had sold 3 million copies, and obviously it's still gaining fans to this day, such as myself. As is typical of Supergiant games, you are dropped in right at the beginning with just your player character and the voice of a narrator guiding you along. This time you play as the Kid, a survivor of the calamity that fractured the land and wiped out nearly all the people of Caelondia. The remaining land is scattered, floating in the air, so try not to fall off as you walk around. The crumbling land is not the only danger though, as nature and creatures stake claim to what remains of nature and abandoned ruins from Caelondia. One place though serves as a safe haven for the Kid and those few people he finds along his journey, the titular Bastion. By collecting cores, the Kid can help rebuild the Bastion, and with it, hopefully rebuild the lost land. The story is straightforward and effective. There are several revelations over the course of the game that reveal what happened before and after the calamity that turned the game on its head. All of them make sense based on the information we discover about the world and how we and our fellow survivors fit into that world. The game is on the shorter side. I completed it in 5 hours, but starting early on, Supergiant drops these hints of information associated with objects or part of the narrative that build together to develop a nice sense of place for the world. There's enough details to give a clear picture of what happened while leaving exact mechanics and dynamics of the society to the player's imagination. The story never dips or drags in any spot. We find our footing, establish a rhythm, have it tugged out from under us, find our way back, reach the climax, and smoothly end with a denouement, but an open-ended one. Bastion is a good balance between blunt and subtle storytelling, and that's what I think appealed to me when I played. The game felt like it had a story to tell, but did so in a clear fashion with no unnecessary details. Despite this all, there is some replay value in the game's story due to how some of the story choices go, and of course to experience it all again with the knowledge of what's to come. As you run around the map, the path builds up along with you, and sometimes crumbles after you, and you can destroy objects in your path to gain the game's currency, or just for fun. As you wander around, you'll also discover new weapons and abilities that you can unlock and equip. The Kid is equipped with 2 weapons. The primary is usually a melee weapon, such as gauntlets, a machete, a spear, etc., and the secondary is usually a ranged weapon, such as a bow, pistol, shotgun, etc. These weapons can be swapped out at the Bastion and at any arsenals you find during your journey. Otherwise though, you'll need to work with what you've got. On top of these weapons, you have a special ability with a lot of variety that you can use a limited amount of times, that limitation coming from the black tonics. Finally, as you try to make sure you survive your trip to whatever land you're exploring, the health tonics will be crucial, as you can carry up to 3 at a time unless you have a certain upgrade, and these are your only ways to heal up during the journey, apart from leveling up. The variety of weapons and powers gives you plenty of options to tackle each level or to change up future runs of the game. I found that I picked one weapon setup and stuck with it, which worked for me the vast majority of the time, but it did make battling a certain specific enemy rather difficult because I had very limited range. Flexibility in combat is a prize in Bastion, and so it does make sense to take some time to familiarize yourself with each of the weapons, especially if you're struggling with your setup in a certain area. As I just alluded to, there's a decent variety of enemies in the game, mixed between ranged and melee, quick and slow, and some twists on top of those basic categories. Since many of the enemies come in varied groups, you need to stay on your toes and adapt to whatever the game is throwing at you in the current moment. That definitely means taking out the ones you can, but the game doesn't leave you defenseless either. You are given a dodge roll to avoid damage and a shield which, if used at the exact right moment, can reflect damage both ranged and melee. The melee block can even stun enemies, allowing you to finish them off in turn. Be careful though, there are some attacks that cannot be blocked, and those are the ones you really need to be wary of. I found the game reasonable when it came to difficulty. I had a few close calls, and one enemy in particular turned into the bane of my existence, but I wasn't sweating most combat encounters. The boss variety is a little more limited than I would like. It mainly consisted of either a buffed up version of a standard enemy or a wave of varied enemies you had to deal with. The overall good quality of the battle system though kept the game entertaining throughout. On the exploration side of things, there are several objects that are not weapons, skills, or tonics that you can collect on the journey and then show to your friends back at the Bastion to gain insight into them. These moments can reveal things about the world, about our individual characters, or are just fun to hear how the narrator describes them. Apart from that, the thing to collect are the cores, which is the main objective, and the currency called fragments that can be used to buy materials and upgrades at the Bastion. There are 6 available facilities for the Bastion that you unlock over time, each with its own unique role. The distillery allows you to upgrade your character with potions as you level up, maximum level is 10. One of my favorite upgrades was upping my health tonics from 3 to 5 with full heals from every one. The arsenal allows you to alter weapons and skills before a subsequent trip to the wilds. The forge is where you upgrade weapons with materials and fragments. Lost and Found is a store where you can purchase materials and other stuff with fragments. The memorial offers challenges to players for fragment rewards, usually associated with proper use of the various weapons. Finally, the shrine is where you can pray to idols, increasing the difficulty of enemies in exchange for greater rewards from defeating them. This last mechanic is the typical way Supergiant introduces increased difficulty into their games, and remains excellent. There is plenty to do at base, but it is straightforward, and therefore it won't be long before you're back out there taking down enemies and discovering more about the Calamity. There are 2 other side adventures in the game, starting with the Proving Ground, where you take on a specific challenge centered around each of the weapons and the shield in-game. Depending on how you do in the challenge, you will get a bronze, silver, or gold reward, which can contain useful materials and the like. It's also, of course, good training for using each of the weapons in actual combat. The final challenge is in Who Knows Where, a level where you fight waves of enemies while hearing backstory about the kid and different companions. Certainly useful to discover more about the world, and the rewards for the combat are good too. There is not fluff to Bastion. Everything in the game is very purposefully included, and that means that whatever time you put into the game is well rewarded. This mindset continues on to New Game Plus, where you keep all your stuff and the game adds in a few more backstories to Who Knows Where. Then we have the presentation, and I think it looks pretty good. The environmental variety is top-notch, with lush, rich landscapes of all sorts scattered around, and good visual presentation of the differences between the objects lying around. Sure, you may try to break some unbreakable objects, but the visual language of the game is still consistent. You just have to learn it. The character designs are basic, but still thoughtful in the differences and similarities between how the characters dress and look. There's not a lot of animation outside of the kids, so the other characters do feel rather static, but that's fine, especially for a short game. Voice acting is almost completely done by the narrator, and his performance is iconic. Clear and easy to understand while also communicating the gravity of the situation and events occurring just via voice. Oh, and it adjusts to how you're playing. Not majorly, but enough to be noticeable, which is a nice touch. The music is Darren Korb doing his thing, making a versatile soundtrack that enriches the world and playing experience, assisted at times by the excellent vocals of Ashley Barrett. As mentioned before, the visual language is good and the UI is strong, with the crucial information always easy to see while not obscuring any of the important action. One crucial thing that they did include that I initially missed out on was the subtitles, which helps those who are hard of hearing or deaf to be able to experience the narration that is so important to how the game's story is told. Supergiant's unique presentation style and standard of quality was set with Bastion, and both of them are excellent, so of course there are no complaints coming from me. Bastion is a tightly constructed adventure with a compelling story, brilliant presentation, a fun combat system, and even decent replay value in spite of its length and tight construction. Supergiant's commitment to purposeful design made Bastion a memorable game and laid the foundation for the path the studio would travel, leading to many fun adventures afterwards. Bastion, though, is still a unique experience and a fun one as well. If you're a fan of Supergiant games, it's a definite recommendation, and also those who want a nice short action combat experience or a world that entices you with its premise and only draws you in further during the journey. If you do give the game a chance or have already and want to let me know, please feel free to do so in the comments. I love hearing other people's thoughts about the games I talk about. Before you leave though, hitting the like button, sharing, and of course commenting is a great way to show your appreciation for the video, and if you are not already subscribed, please do to keep up with the channel. Have a great day and happy gaming.